Now it's time for Straight on the Point with Jesse T. from some undisclosed location somewhere in the world. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Jesse T.
Well, it's good to be back with you. The Brown Beauty is back on duty. It's time for the Jesse T Show here on a beautiful, beautiful day in Southern California. And the beast right here that loves you the most. Yes, I am that host, and it's good to have you along with me as we broadcast across the network of thepowerofvoices.com. And we are also broadcasting on Facebook.com/Jesse Torrero. That's what our social media TV network. I'm going to count them off now. Instagram Live, hooking that up right now in just a second at Jesse Torrero. YouTube, the Jesse Torrero channel, and we're on Tumblr and Twitter and LinkedIn and Diggy and Google Plus and Pinterest and Reddit and so many more. Also, thepowerofvoices.com on their Facebook site and 3 other Facebook sites. Just Google up the name, The Jesse T Show, across radio and TV, across the beautiful place we call home sweet home, America the Beautiful. God bless America. God bless our president. What a job he did yesterday and the day before. My goodness, I love him. I knew he was going to be president, that wacky guy, and that's what I love about him. Hey, we've got a great guest, a couple of guys in here. You know David Hernandez, way off over there by the Grand Canyon. He's off on the left side, way over there. And congratulations, David, on your fine campaign, though you didn't get past or into the runoff, but you meant for the amount of money, you put extreme effort in, and you've got what? You got so far over, what, 300,000 votes for Lieutenant Governor?
They're still counting, but it's 328,406. And I'm sure that is because you had a part of it.
That's right.
I mean, I was on your show. We got the word out there.
Yes.
Because if you,
right.
Some of the other candidates spent $5 million, $2 million. So I spent less than $20,000. A lot of that was in gasoline because I was driving all over the state.
Yeah.
But the fact on AM radio as well.
Right.
They started pushing my name out there, and so it's really a shared victory. So I just can't. It was very exciting. This state is far from gone.
Right.
And meeting the people from the Mexican border up to Kern County, Sacramento, Tulare County, and everything in between. It was really a worthwhile experience. I don't regret 1 minute or 1 mile. And
I like that. Doing the miles with the smiles.
There you go.
That's right. Well, when you crisscross California like that, you see what a grand place California really is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It is. We get kind of trapped into Hollywood and the beach and the big tall buildings,
the 405 freeway.
The 405 freeway. We get trapped into our little isolated idea of what California is. But when you leave Southern California and you start going up Central California and Northern California, what a beautiful state it is. It truly is the Golden State. Unfortunately, El Stupido Governor Jerry Brown is finally going to be out. Thank you very much. And hopefully Gruesome Newsom will be gone too. And
don't tell me you're a Cox supporter.
I am a Cox supporter. That's right.
Well, and you know what?
Actually, I voted for Travis Allen.
Well, so did I, and because Travis and I spent a lot of time together. But I also spent a lot of time with John Cox.
Yeah, I want to get him on the show because I think he has. Well, he's our guy now.
Right, and you know what? And that's the important factor.
Yeah.
Okay, you have 2 choices: Gavin Newsom or John Cox.
Right.
So all of my Republican friends that are out there that worked very hard with my campaign.
Right.
We have to come together.
Absolutely.
We have to come together because we have a great top of the ticket. We have Mark Muser for Secretary of State. We have the treasurer's race has still not been called because Greg Conlon has about 100,000 votes ahead of Jack Torrero. So that's still pretty close considering. Stephen Bailey is in the top 2 for Attorney General against Javier Becerra.
You know something? I hope that Stephen gets it because we got to turn the judicial system around here in California. I wish they'd break up the Ninth Circuit Court into like 2 or 3 different courts because it's just too crazy.
Well, it's so I'm going to spend the rest of my I've been wearing two hats.
Right.
I'm helping this next gentleman on that you're going to have.
And
on
I'm gonna let you introduce because you and him go way back into the San Fernando Valley and in the political activism and community activist scene here. But I do want to get to that. But finish up,
Yeah,
please.
what I was going to say is, it's time to unite, and I know there was some bad blood between the two candidates, especially between the supporters.
Right.
But it's time to come together and to make sure that the Republicans that are in the top two going forward are successful.
Yes.
We can do it. The votes are there.
I think the state, temperament-wise, and the folks living in the state, the citizens of the state of California, are just fed up. It's like that movie, Network, where Albert Finney played the guy, the anchor. I'm so sick and tired of it. I got to do something.
Right.
I think the voters in California now have just come to the point now where they just know something is better out there than what we're getting.
Well, look at how far it's gone in that direction. That the initiative just made it on the ballot for November to divide California into 3 states.
I mean, really.
It is that bad that they want to separate it, and I'm saying no. You know what? Let's work together. Let's change it. Republicans, you are just as guilty for sitting home and not voting and looking, and I'll introduce Benito Bernal now. Benito Bernal is running for Congress in the Northeast San Fernando Valley.
Yeah, that's Tony Cardenas's currency.
Yes.
Right.
And now, in the June 5th primary, more Republicans did not vote for Congress than Tony got votes for Congress.
So there's definitely a window of opportunity here.
Right. There's 34,000 registered Republicans in District 29. And more important, or just as important, there are 90,000 independent declined to state voters. There's 150,000 Democrats, but 120,000 of those Democrats didn't vote for Tony Cardenas.
Right.
So he doesn't have a lock on it.
Right.
And so my advocacy in the community spans quite a few years. And whether it's serving on the foundation board at Mission College, whether it's helping out with homeless or with youth sports or with any number of issues, Benito Bernal has always been somebody there volunteering, not being paid to do the heavy lifting, but volunteering.
Right.
And so now he was on the opposite side of the aisle, but it didn't matter because I think, and that is more and more the issue today, is that we have shared challenges. Doesn't make any difference how you're registered coming down that 405 freeway. Doesn't make any difference how you're registered when you have a homeless encampment outside your home. Doesn't make any difference if how you're registered if your schools are not graduating 50% or more. None of those quality of life issues make any difference who you are, how you're registered. So you can work together.
Absolutely. And not only that, President Trump has shown a way that we haven't seen, at least in my lifetime, a way in which that you can bridge the gap between two parties, the lefties, I like to call them, on the left, and the conservatives on the right, because in reality, he acts more like an independent thinking man.
Yes.
On every issue, he has a point of view that's independent from either party's persuasion. In that respect. And so with that idea, America is finally, after a couple, two and a half years of this, understanding that the guy is his own guy and he has common sense and logic. And I see the rhinos in Congress, which you're running for, and we're going to get into that right now. The rhinos in Congress are afraid of the situation that's happening because rhinos, for folks that don't know what they are, they're people that are voted in as Republicans, but they act like Democrats. They're always on the left side of the issue. the wrong side of the issue most of the time. So let's bring on Benito Bernal. Now, I've known Benito for off and on here for probably about 20 years. We've run through our paths there when I was doing a lot of community activism, fighting human trafficking in Sun Valley and Pacoima and Van Nuys and all of that stuff. And you've been in and out of the political scene here for some time as far as your current activism and your community, forethought and working with the community members. But it's an interesting choice you made here, and we were talking about it before the show. You were previously a Democrat, and you've re-registered as a Republican. Why is that? What makes that change in you happen? What happened?
It all has to do with faith. This is, and I'll tell my story just briefly, quickly here.
Please.
18 years ago, 20 years ago, you're very familiar with the Latino political machine.
Oh, absolutely.
Coming from the same community. So the whole purpose of building the Latino political machine was pretty much to address the issues that were affecting our community: the gang violence, teenage dropouts, teenage pregnancies, illegal migration, the abuse in the welfare system, so on and so forth. But we always we were brainwashed, and we were always blaming a different race or blaming everybody else for our failures. So the plan was to build this machine, run for city council, run for school board, city council, state assembly, Senate, Congress, and then eventually the presidency in 2024. That was the big plan, pretty much a 20-year plan. So as we slowly got into that, couple years into it, after getting, Richard was elected, Tony was elected.
Yeah, way back in the early 80s.
Yeah, but after getting Tony elected, him and I were very close, and we were very instrumental in getting him involved and actually even convincing him to run for office.
He was a real estate broker in my office, a real estate agent in my red carpet office.
Yeah, so him and I had a conversation, and I spoke with his wife, and, we said, I think Tony would be a great guy. So long story short, at the end of the day, I found out, I finally realized that, hey, wait a minute. Here we are in office. We have people pretty much at every level of government, and instead of addressing the issues, we're finding ways to make money out of it.
Right.
We're exploiting the sufferings of our community. So I started having a battle with the people I grew up with, the people that are in office, and it was even hurting my reputation because the people in our community who supported me, who believed in me, who I asked to go behind these candidates, were kind of questioning me. But so I started sharing with them exactly what was going on in our community, and some didn't want to believe me. But I said, you know what? The best way for you to find out is go work for these individuals. Go volunteer on their campaigns.
That's a very good point.
Get involved with them directly, and then you'll see it for your own eyes. For some, it took a year. For some, 5 years. For some, it took 15 years. But what happened, going back to Patty Lopez's election,
I remember that.
What happened behind Patty Lopez's election were the people that we were educating over the past 18 years. There was a machine that was working behind her that nobody was aware of. Right. And it's just people we grew up with, people we know that we just have conversations. Who are we going to vote for, Benny? Well, here's the person I'm supporting, here's why. Right. So Patty got a lot of support.
Magnificent story she has.
Yeah. So a lot of that happened, but at the end of the day, it was pretty much, it got to the point where I became a born-again Christian, and everything I did was based on spiritual decision, just getting on my knees and asking the Lord. So the Lord had wanted me to stay within the Democratic Party because he wanted me to try to reform from within. I was having convictions in my heart because the platform had changed. The platform that the Democratic Party stands for now is not the same platform that they stood for years ago, which is what the generation that I believe is very valuable and key to this election and the future of the state is that conservative Democratic base, which is our parents. And that base,
parents, Democrats.
Yeah, it's something that we're tapping into right now because we're explaining to them. Here's an interesting story. It's like they were very upset because I became a Republican, right? So I said, okay, let's have a conversation about this.
My mother was too.
I said, look, here's two platforms. We wrote down all the different issues. Which one do you align yourself most with? And it was my sisters, it was relatives. People were upset at me because I became a Republican. And they're like, well, that one on the left, that one there, or that one. It was actually the one on the right is the one they were pretty much aligning themselves with. So then you flip it over, and it's like, well, that's the Republican platform. And then this that you disagreed with, it's a Democratic platform. I said, the difference is, Mom and my sisters, because a lot of them don't know social media. They don't have time. Most people in our district don't have time to do the research because
they're
busy.
working.
You're trying to make ends meet.
Yeah.
You know, that's the community we represent.
The district that you represent is a working man and woman's district.
Exactly. But it's very, very conservative.
Very conservative.
Yeah. And
yeah, and that's the dilemma. It's a very conservative district, but yet the district number is what 29.
Yeah.
Very, very conservative district, but yet the political parties are very left and very. They've gotten to the degree, and you made a point, that the party of yesteryear is not the same party on the Democrat side of 2018. I would venture to say, and I talk about this all the time, no, they're not even the same party. They're left of left.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're doing things
Absolutely.
that, quite frankly, I'd get my ass kicked on the street if I was doing that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't mean to say it that way, but I do, because they're left of left. And
AB 2943.
47, 57, left of left.
You look at how
gas tax, left of left.
It's gotten to the point where they not only have disrespect towards the values and the godly values that we have as conservatives, and especially the Democrats, they want God out of the picture. And AB 2943 is a clear sign of that. And so anyways, what was happening was it got to the point where the Lord finally had said, you know what? I talked to David just a couple of days before the final deadline. I said, David, the Lord wants me to run. I said, but he wants me to run as a Republican. I said, and I'm telling him, I don't want to do this. And people were looking at me like, you know, you're crazy, because here's what the Lord said. I don't want you to raise a single dollar. I don't want you to put out one yard sign. I don't want you to make one phone call. I want you to just trust me. And I was like, really? So I shared that with David.
Wow.
Before all these accusations came out against Tony Cardenas.
Yes.
Before the mailer hit piece that he put out on me that worked in my favor. So here we are as time is going on and people are questioning, okay, this man he's losing his mind.
Right.
It's all about faith. I said, so then when the accusations came out, they're like, wow.
Yeah, let me address those accusations.
Yeah.
You know, Tony got in trouble some years ago. The alleged accusation is that he had some liaisons of some sort on a golf course somewhere with a young lady, with some possibilities of other things working into that. And 30 years later, she has come forward and said, inspired by the Me Too movement in Hollywood that's taking place, come forward and has represented herself with her lawyers the certain situation that took place. And of course, it's an alleged, it's alleged, it's an accusation, and the attorneys are basically doing their thing now. But to be targeted like that, whether it's true or false, in today's climate of 2018, it's very different than it was 10, 15, or 20 or 30 years ago. People really want to know the truth about an individual, and this comes into play with their process of making a decision, especially with the limited information that we have today, because a lot of folks aren't on the computer. There's only really one newspaper in the community, L'Opinion, right? And they're kind of off to the left too, in a lot of ways. And so, you know, people adhere themselves quickly to these types of accusations. So now a window has opened up for somebody to come in and talk about the issues of District 29. And you're in a runoff now because of this.
Yes.
Or one of the many reasons.
One of the many. Yeah, and I know there's plenty of media that have reached out to me, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to get into that.
Right.
I said, at the end of the day, we have a system that's
in District 29, because you're going to go to Congress. This is a federal posting here.
Yes. Well, I mean, personally, being involved and working in the school district for the past 30 years, I've seen a change. I mean, there was conversations that, being in transportation, I started as a school bus driver. Back then, it would be like, now I'm in supervision and management overseeing the department.
Right.
But back then, you would hear your high school students who would be talking about, what school are we going to go to? I'm going to try to get into this university, that university. Over the past 15 years, that conversation changed.
Really?
That conversation is now, I'm just going to drop out of school. I'm going to have children, and I'm going to go on the welfare system. So when I started hearing that, I'm thinking,
wow,
wait a minute. How does this connect? Because you have individuals who now they get pregnant, they go on the welfare system, they hook up with the young man, they use half of the money, they turn it over to sell drugs, and they make a living. And that's how they live. And there's no limit to it. So I'm seeing a generation that's just being destroyed because of the abuse within the welfare system. And even beyond that, and I'm not one that just fights for one race, but the majority of our district is the color of my skin.
They're Latinos.
And it's like,
absolutely,
this is our generation that is being destroyed. And why? Because people are making money off of it.
Right.
There's money being made off of it in many different ways. When you have low-income housing, you know, you have all of that, and it's like, this is wrong, and this has to change. So that was an issue that really got me more involved and more motivated to get more involved at the federal level and see what I can do to change this. But when I brought it to the attention of our current elected officials, their thing was, well, pretty much you're going into our pockets. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like, okay, so it's either I go into your pockets or I fight for the people. I fight for lives. So I chose to fight for lives. So that was a big issue. You know, you have the illegal immigration. I have relatives that have been here for almost 30 years. Mm-hmm. You know, some have done great. Some have become citizens. They've gotten their residencies. Whatever it is, they've done what needed to be done because they appreciate what this country has to offer them. But then I have a portion of them and individuals that we know in our community who still are here in this country illegally. Right. And their children are the very children that are going through this system, are getting pregnant at 14, 15 years old, right, and making all this money. And I see a generation of our people being destroyed. And it's not just our people. You know, don't get me wrong, like I said, but the majority of the race in our district is that.
No, you represent your district.
Oh, absolutely,
in Washington,
absolutely,
right, absolutely.
And it goes across the board,
right?
And it's not even just those who are here illegally; it's even American-born citizens who are stuck in this oppression, and that's where they want them. Because you know what? As long as it's like you have these politicians up today, they're this big Santa Claus. You know, I'm Santa Claus, and I'm going to give you everything you need. I'm going to keep you down there so you keep voting for me. I want to change that.
Well, that's what LBJ did with the Great Society back in the 1950s, or the mid-1960s. He did some good things with the Great Society, but he basically enslaved the Southern people of our country, white, black, and brown, and made them, that's where welfare came out of, the Great Society, and really created the mass problem it is today. But today I was reading a report. It's the first time in a very long time that actually EBT and welfare has gone down on the federal level. Less people are signing up for it and more people are getting out of it. And that's the first time this trend has ever been. And why? Because of jobs. So in your district, 29, we need jobs, good paying jobs. I mean, that's one of the things that you talked about a lot, David, is jobs, you know, especially.
And you know what? There are a lot of jobs, but the need is for individuals that are trained to do that, you know, and this is one of the things that I know Benny shares that opinion. Northeast Valley Occupational Center.
Yes.
Part of that.
Great program.
Is the aviation.
It goes back. I remember it.
Yeah. Aviation Mechanics School, which is situated on the Van Nuys Airport.
Wow.
The students that go through that, it's a four semester program, 100%, forget about getting jobs. They get careers starting at $50,000 to $70,000.
That's a great
They are
job.
hired immediately by Magic Mountain, Disneyland, by all these amusement parks, because all of the things that they are learning at that school that can be used in aviation at the airport are
so why don't we know about this? Why does the public not know about this?
But
Benny?
see, that's
why do they not know about this? Why?
It's once again,
it's in your district.
It goes back to what
you're
talking about.
You're running for.
And my thing was, even when I was running as a Democrat, I said, why don't people know about this?
I didn't know about that. This is
the
first time I've ever heard. I remember the North Valley Occupational Center. When I was a kid, a teenager at Poly High School. So I remember it well.
So it's not only just making people aware of it, but it's also expanding it. I mean, why only have it there at Northeast Occupational Center? We can expand that, you know, and give these children, to give these young men and women more opportunities. So, and there's plenty of different programs, whether it be nursing, whether it be police and fire department, because you have a lot of magnet programs within the school district where parents aren't aware of magnet programs, even though it's more of a local issue, state issue.
Right.
Still, you have to make your constituency aware of what benefits are out there, what programs, what opportunities are out there.
Right.
We have some of the greatest schools and greatest programs in our district.
You know, the out in the Antelope Valley, they just got the big contract. Lockheed just got that big contract to service and build more FY-22s and F-35s to service them. Yeah. And they're building a huge, huge hangar complex out there for this now. And they're hiring faster than they can hire.
But you know what? But a lot of that hiring is those, what are the E2 or EB visas? So they're importing the workforce.
Right.
When we have had the facility that would be able to train the people, so when that thing opens up, that they would be forget the $15 an hour minimum wage. I mean,
you're talking $80 an hour.
That's crumbs on the table. We're talking about careers, and so that's why I'm really excited about Benito being there, because when those federal contracts are coming back and the they start coming back to California, that we're gonna have a workforce that is ready.
Yes. Yes, and that's the goal.
And that's the thing about schooling.
Yes, and that's the goal. Make people aware of what's available for them, get them ready, train them, so that way, you know, when everything is up and going, we don't have to look outside. We have them within our own, and especially within our own district. We have some beautiful, intelligent people within our own district. They're just limited to their opportunities. You know, they're not aware of it, and that's. I mean, even like when we talk about veterans. You know, I have a few individuals.
You have one of the largest veterans hospitals in your district.
Oh yeah,
there. It takes up the whole friggin' mountain there.
Yeah, the only problem with that is they don't provide all the services anymore.
They don't.
So much has been taken away. I want to reverse that. You know,
but how do you do that in Washington? Because when President Trump came in, there's so much bureaucracy, layered on wasted bureaucracy and money, just layered on abuses that took place. He came in and said that has to stop, fired about 1,000 people, last number I got, and shook some things up there, and people now are worried about their jobs in the upper supervisory levels, and things are starting to turn a little bit. How do you continue that in Washington?
But that's the key. The key is, my message to everyone is that, okay, you may not totally love our president, but you have a president who's willing to talk and deal with issues right now. We have a president who I can just simply have a conversation with him, say, look, here is our hospital here in our district. All your words, I'm going to use all your words, put it into action here in our district.
Right.
I mean, the work is already being done for us.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of having somebody in this seat that will respect our president and will grab and tap into the resources that are available, grab him by the arm and say, let's go, Mr. President. Let's make this happen.
So how come I don't know about this in District 29? I mean, I know about it because I've lived 55 of my 57 years here in Los Angeles and San Fernando Valley. But how come I don't know about District 29 in the VA hospital? How come it's not all over everywhere? How come all the vets, how come I don't know these things? Why?
Well, in my honest opinion,
tell me.
Because there's been a D in front of the congressman, every congressman that has represented this district.
Right.
You know, and they haven't been supportive of our veterans. When it comes to election time, sure, they show up at all the meetings and they hoorah-rahs and everything else. But it's the veterans themselves who have come to me time and time again and said, Benny, you need to run. You need to run. That's when I was a Democrat, but a conservative Democrat, because my brother being a Vietnam vet, I've seen what my brother's gone through. My brother just called me the other day. He said, Benny, can you come over? Unfortunately, I was in a meeting yesterday. He says, we're at the pool. They open up the pool for certain areas. He says, just the swimming therapy alone, Benny. He says, there's so much that it does for us as individuals. Now the gentleman who oversees that, just to supervise it, is going on vacation. So guess what they're shutting down?
The pool.
The pool.
Because there's nobody to back it up.
Exactly. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, for you and I, it may seem something very simple, but for them, it means a lot to them. So I'm saying, you know what? This is ridiculous. We got to do something about that. So at the end of the day, veterans are going to be a top of my priority. You know, not just because of my brother. I have two brothers that served, but one in Vietnam. And let me tell
Well,
you,
PTSD is one of the biggest problems. We have 22 suicides every day in America of our veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. There's a terrific director, Jerry Giangelo. I got to hook you up with him. He has a film called Warfighter, and he's taking it to the streets, one theater after another, driving his car with his film across it. It's a beautiful film. Jerry Giangelo, Warfighter. We had him in here, and it's all about PTSD.
wow.
And it is when the veterans show up to the theaters that he has it in, they get in for free, and their families get in for free. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the movie, the veterans start standing up and talking to Jerry Giangelo about their experience, and then the whole theater is just in tears, or it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, because I've been to a couple of these things. PTSD is a very big issue with our veterans today.
Well, that's actually what got me more involved at the federal level. My brother was dealing with it. Now, my brother was in special ops, special forces.
Right.
So
and they really
all the injuries that and all this that happened to him, there was no record of it. Apparently, there was no record of it because it was all in some secret file.
Yeah.
So for 15 years, he had to deal with this
himself.
So I'm like, okay, wait a minute, something's got to be done. And that's when there was a different congressman back before Cárdenas that was in office.
Yes.
And luckily, we had a friend that we grew up with who was able to assist us. And my brother got the benefits and the services that he deserved.
Right.
You know, so what I would like to have part of my staff will be definitely, I want to have one, if not two staff members. Their sole responsibility, their duties are going to be just veterans, not waiting for them to walk through our door. No, you are going to identify every veteran in our district, and you are going to reach out to these veterans, and you are going to make sure that they're getting all the benefits that they deserve. And whatever is not out there, I'm going to go to our great president, President Donald Trump, and say, you know, Mr. President, we need some more help. Here's what we have. And knowing this president, seeing how God is working in his life and in his heart, because for me, it's all about faith.
I've never seen a president talk more about God in my lifetime than President Trump. I'll tell you that much. Reagan did. Yes. Reagan talked, but not like President Trump.
No, he is doing things. I'm telling you, it is we call it
a
Jesus movement.
I have no problem with the Islam religion, the ones that aren't fanatics, though I do speak quite strongly about that religion and the Quran and stuff and my feelings about that. But hey, you can worship whoever you want, just as long as you don't kill people on your journey to your worshiping. Yeah. All right, but this America was built on Judeo-Christian attitudes and concepts. Yes. Okay, and this country functions that way. It's just a simple fact. Yeah, it functions that way. So it's great to see a president lead on that. So you're sitting in Congress as a rookie congressman now. Okay, you're a first timer, and you know, you're gonna vie for some subcommittee panels, and some stuff's gonna come at you and stuff. I mean, if there was one panel or one topic matter or one area that you'd like to put your heart behind as a rookie congressman, what would it be? So we talked about veterans, we talked about education, we talked about the political spectrum right now. What would it be to help the constituents of District 29 and help the country?
It would have to be two, and I think they go hand in hand, and that's illegal immigration itself, and the welfare system.
Are you for building the wall?
Absolutely.
What about DACA?
And here's why I support building the wall. Let me tell you a story. When I was running as for Congress 2 years ago, there was a father, and it was more than one story, but a father who said was coming to this country illegally from Guatemala, paid $20,000, $5,000 for himself, his wife, and his 4-year-old and 5-year-old daughter. Okay, when they got to TJ, they were separated. The men were separated from the women. They were taken to 2 different vans, taken to 2 different houses. The men were given a backpack. The men were told, you are forced to take these drugs across the border. Once you get those drugs across the border, you call this phone number right here. When you call this phone number, you get your family back. This man was forced to smuggle these drugs across the border, did it, called the number. Guess what?
What?
His wife and 2 children were sold into the human sex trade.
Oh!
Never got them. So when I speak to individuals, I walk into a room filled with individuals who are so anti the wall. And when I share this story with them, I say, do you understand now, by building the wall, because the father's own words were that, Benito, if it was difficult for us to come across the border, if that wall were to be built, Benito, 90% of the individuals trying to come across this country illegally would think twice about it. They would think twice about it. Because once they know these stories, Ben, he says, people aren't talking about it. We were just the other day, I was at an immigration office talking to a gentleman. We were interviewing another congressional candidate. And it just happened to be in an immigration office, immigration services, right? So he was from Guatemala. So he's telling the story about thousands and thousands of lives that never make it out of the desert. Never make it out of the desert, you know, because of the human trafficking, because of whoever it is that's involved in this. So when I share this with these individuals, they get it.
People don't realize how corrupt Mexico is.
Oh.
They don't realize how corrupt the government, but even on the local level, the government, the federal government of Mexico can't control the border on their side, let alone do anything else.
Yes.
And so they just let it run amok and they get paid off. They got a big presidential election going on in Mexico right now. There's 2 or 3 individuals vying for that spot. But they don't understand the cartels. They don't understand what just across the border of America is like.
Yes.
You know, I've got some stories I could tell from my record days. People getting incarcerated just because they got wrapped up in something.
Yeah.
And difficult to get them out, and a lot of money. But with this human trafficking, which now a lot of the El Norte, Mexican Mafia, LM, MS-13, all getting involved in that because it's cheap and easy money. There's always a supply of people, and obviously
This came out, you know, with the current congressman. I even asked him, you know, you say you're against human trafficking. Then why don't you stand with me and support building the wall? Because of the story.
Right.
Never got a response from the congressman. Cardenas never responded to me. And I'm like, you know, you can't have both sides. You know, you got to either believe in it or you don't, buddy.
Sort of like Dennis Rodman going to President Obama and saying, "Look, I'm going to make pals with Rocket Boy over there, right, Kim?" And President Obama just shunned him to the side and said, "Oh, you're just, you know, whatever." But he goes and does it, comes back. Everybody puts him down for it as a traitor. And then Trump takes the lead, and he says, "Sure, come on over if you want to.
Yeah.
No problem." But you see, that's the same kind of ideology that we're talking about. They just turn the cheek, sort of like in human trafficking in Lancashire and San Fernando Road. I got sick and tired of it after 100 years of pimping and human trafficking there. I just finally one day walked into my associate's business there, and I said, "Give me everything you've got for the last 30 years." And within 3 to 5 years, we had it cleaned up because I got tired of it. I got tired of it.
I remember you guys doing that, you know, and thank you for all you did, because only God knows how many lives you saved.
Well, I know 10 young people,
and I think
saved.
it's beyond that. I think it's even beyond that. You know, God uses the right people for the right reasons. You know, and He surrounded me with people that are very intelligent in their many different areas. I have somebody coming in from D.C. When's he flying in?
Yeah, well, he'll be here Wednesday, the 20th.
Yeah, and I'll let David talk about that.
Yeah.
But I've got some interesting people coming in that have doubt. They were top-notch people in D.C. dealing with human trafficking, who have given me the advice, who have given me direction. These are people that are going to be involved of you know, our staff.
Of go to David, tell me about DACA. What's your position on DACA? Because that's coming up. That's going to be on the agenda here very soon. Top of the headlines coming up again now.
I have a daughter. My oldest daughter owes $80,000 in student loans. She didn't qualify for 1 penny of financial assistance because Dad has a home. Dad don't own his home.
Right.
The bank owns my home.
Yeah.
But Dad has a home.
Right.
Dad has a good job. True. But because of all the money they pull out, I'm so stretched that I'm so-called the middle class.
Right.
We're about to snap. We're about to lose our middle class. But yet I have relatives whose children are DACA recipients who get a free ride. And I say, how is that fair? How is that fair to our children who were born here? How is that fair to my child when I'm the one that's paying the taxes for everyone else to get their free ride? My daughter will never be able to pay off that loan.
Right.
You know? So my thing is, I'm not saying let's cut them out completely, because that would not be the right thing to do. You know, it's not their fault. But our children need to come first. Our children need to be put on that list.
What about this idea of breaking up families that the lefties always talk about as an emotional impact piece of dynamite when this issue comes up? The breaking up of families.
Well, why are we breaking up families? We're breaking it up because when you have somebody, an illegal immigrant who's come into this country, who's broken the laws, committed a felony, and is being released back into the public instead of going through the process and turning them to the right federal agencies that you're supposed to turn them into. So you're releasing them. Where are they going?
Right.
They're going back to their homes. So so now the federal agents have to go into people's homes.
Right.
If you just follow the law, then they don't have to go into people's homes.
Right.
And there's consequences to every decision that we as individuals make.
Oh, we have a right to have our own country? Really?
Absolutely.
Really? I didn't know so. I didn't know we could have our own constitution and
Yes.
we can.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the consequences.
What a concept.
And like I tell people, there's consequences to every action.
Right.
I have to think about it before I decide to break the law. Why? Because if I decide to break the law and get caught, I could be separated from my family. So we have to have responsibility and accountability as well. That has to be a part of it.
Listen, when you break the law, when you come across this border and you come across here illegally and you're here for 20 or 30 years, dodging the system like you have been able to do for the last 40 years or 50 years, and then your children grow up here and they don't know any different. They just know that this is their country, and you get caught under what's happening now, and they send you back, and your children are adults. Well, hey, they're going to have to fend for themselves and go through the system, either serving the armed forces or do something and get and make it happen. And if they're mad at anybody, they should be mad at their parents. They've been here for 20 or 30 years. Why didn't you tell me?
Absolutely.
I would have went and got it done. And if they're younger than that and they couldn't get it done, well, I'm sorry. Too bad. This is Jesse Torrero's line on it. Thank goodness I'm not running. Because if I was running, I'd send the whole freaking family back and say, here, you have a ticket, an e-ticket to a great ride. You'll get in a little quicker than anybody else. I'll put you somewhere else in the line. But go home. This is, I'm sorry. Thank goodness I'm not running. What do you say to something like that?
Well, Jesse, you just shared a story of a wonderful woman that came into my life, Maria Adonai. She's a California correspondent for Citizens for Trump. That's her story. She was brought here at age 3 illegally. And when she became old enough and wise enough to understand what was happening, she was upset at her parents. Just the story you just shared is her story. And if those listeners out there, Citizens for Trump, I believe it is. Yeah, Citizens for Trump. She has like about 300,000, little over 300,000 followers, but she shares her story on there as well. And she's doing an amazing job. So, I'm just thankful that we got this opportunity, to finally sit down and talk and be on the air.
We got more
share
time.
This, it's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's not like a bad date, man. I'm looking at my watch saying, okay, God, well, how long do I got to be with this guy? Jesus, I want to go home. I want to go home and watch Star Trek and have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I don't like the place he took me to dinner. Thank you very much.
I'll let you pick the place next time, right?
Hey, man, I'm cheap and easy, man. Jack in the Box, 59-cent tacos. I'm a happy guy.
That's it.
I can eat them while I drive and not get in trouble. So who's coming into town?
Well, when you talked about you haven't heard other presidents talk this much about God or faith-based than Donald Trump. Well, something just took place within the last 3 months. The president has established the White House Faith and Opportunity office in the West Wing for the first time. Pastor Paula, I believe it's Paula White. She is the head of that organization there. A friend of ours who has supported both Benny and I and have worked with us in the past has accepted the position as number 2 in that office. He's also one of 40 pastors that are on the executive evangelical coalition that meet every quarter privately with President Trump for the sole purpose of praying for him. Well, he is coming to Los Angeles next week. And
is he going to do an event, special event?
What we want to do is he wants to come here and explain all of these opportunities for the faith-based community, whether it's an organized church or whether it's a nonprofit. So since he's a supporter of Benny and I, that Benito is going to put on an event on the 20th, and where he's going to come and he's going to speak, and we'll let you know where it's at.
Yeah.
And so that pastors or faith-based community can come and hear what the mission statement of this new organization? How is it? What can they do to help, or they can tap into the resources there? So this is an incredible thing that has happened, and so we go back a long time, with this individual in working with homeless and working with against the prescription drug, the overdoses.
Those are some interesting topics, and I just want to break away for a second because homelessness in the district you're running, District 29, massive problem, massive problem of homelessness, massive problems of veterans being homeless, though that is becoming less and less because many veterans are starting to find the services, and a lot of work has been done across the country with trying to get veterans off the streets. But still a massive problem. A lot of it is based because of our weather in Southern California. If you're going to go homeless, it's better to go homeless here than Cleveland, Ohio in the dead of winter, or Chicago. So, we have that issue. But homelessness connected to illegal aliens, homelessness connected to habitual criminals, homeless connected to DUIs, homeless connected to those that are breaking misdemeanor laws and civil laws, homelessness in terms of the psychological ability to understand that they're not crazy. I mean, where's your perspective on homelessness in some of those areas?
Well, I think you did a great job. It's the first time that somebody actually broke it down the way we see it. There's many different components to it.
Right.
It's not just one issue. And going back into those within our district, about 15 years ago, we would start going out on the streets and started trying to help the homeless, right? Well, I would say maybe 80% of them were from our district, from the state of California.
Right.
That's changed.
Yes.
The majority of those that are here now are not even from the state of California. Why? Because you go back to Obamacare and you go back to the services that California offered to individuals who don't even have to live in our state. So you have all these doctors who were pretty much advertising in other states, telling them about all these benefits that are here in California. So come on down.
So here's your ticket.
Come on down. So they come down to California, and all these agencies are just sucking them dry of all their money. Once all the benefits are gone, where do you think they go?
On the street.
Yeah, they don't take them in. Right back onto the street. So we're dealing with a very large population of individuals who aren't even from not just our district, aren't even from our state.
Well, they break it down. I mean, I used to count the homeless for like almost 10 years in CD7, CD6, which is the city, basically the same district that the District 29 for the congressional seat is, or Assembly 39, Assembly State of California seat 39. But I used to count the homeless, and it basically broke down in this. After years of doing this, a third of the people actually got off the street because some tragic event happened in their lifetime, especially after the 2008 subprime blow-up and all that stuff. Something tragic happened, but they did everything that they could possibly do to get off the streets and not abuse the system. Within 18 to 24 months, they were off the streets, starting their brand new life over somehow, some way, somewhere in California. About a third of them were just psychologically impaired due to drugs, alcohol, health issues, been on the streets for 50 years, just psychologically impaired in some way, either through chemical or social or whatever, and they're just not going to get off the streets. These are the ones that, when Reagan clipped it, these are the ones that an example came onto the streets in the mid-'80s when Reagan cut the budget of that. But the other third are the ones that they love the services, and when you give them a place to stay, they'll go place to stay. But when you ask them to get involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, Drug Anonymous, take certain tests, health tests, blood tests, urine tests, and all this stuff, they don't want to and won't, and they refuse because they want to go back on the streets. In other words, they like the streets because they make about $50,000 a year living on the streets by not being charged what costs you and I 60 hours a week to make. So how do you deal with that, Benny?
There comes a time and point where you, as an elected official, you have to make decisions for people. You have to be willing to. There has to be requirements, just like in the welfare system. I believe that drug testing has to be mandated. That has to be a part of reforming the welfare system, because we're not paying you for this. We're not trying. That's not helping you. So it's the same thing here. You have individuals who, and I always hear the argument, well, you have individuals who can't make this decision for themselves. Then that's when we need to make a decision for them. Because at the end of the day, it's public safety. You know, it's not like it used to be where they were in their own areas. Now they're in our public streets, in our public parks, where our children are having to be exposed to things that they shouldn't be seeing. And you look at all this stuff that's going on in our communities, which ties right back into that small group of individuals that we're speaking of. You need a congressman. You need elected officials who are willing to say, you know what? No, I can care less about what's politically correct. Bottom line is political correctness needs to go out the door, and we need to put, first of all, Americans first, but our public safety first, because I don't want my children having to be exposed to this, nor do I want your children or anybody else's. So decisions have to be made. I may not be the popular candidate when it comes to that, but you know what? It needs to happen. And we need to move forward. But
look, when you have hepatitis A breakouts in San Diego, and you have 30,000 hypodermic needles spread all over San Francisco parks, and you have trash buildup and rats and fleas, what you mentioned when you were running in Los Angeles.
That's what we're going to talk about.
The LA Times today talked about a breakout in Los Angeles of those vector-transmitted diseases. Today, I had a conversation with what's his name, Dr. Drew, and because there is a bill in the Senate about establishing a 1-year conservatorship over an individual who meets these different standards that is unable to care for themselves. And this is to remove them from the street and care for them, provided that they meet that. And so Dr. Drew said, well, David, you do support that, don't you? And I said, I have to support it. How can you not have the compassion? How can you not care for somebody who is on the street that for whatever reason is unable to ask for help?
Absolutely.
And whether it's psychological, whether it's a drug-induced psychosis, whether it's, how could you allow someone to suffer? And she goes, well, we have to talk more about this. I said, because with the disease factor, I said, because he always talks about the disease factor, I said, thank God they included that. I said, because I talked with the emergency room doctors who treated those that came down with hepatitis in San Diego. Those weren't homeless people.
No,
those are people that are exposed.
Go out to dinner.
People.
Go out to
dinner. Go out to dinner. You get on a bus. You
Public
get on
transportation.
A subway. And so what happens is, I want to work closely with Benito to say, you know what, this is a medical emergency. What the Dr. Drew said was, you know what, we have to do this.
And that's where, as a congressman, I want to get the federal government involved. I want to bring in the CDC. Because we're going to be right now, especially with the temperatures that are rising.
That's interesting. So turn the homeless issue into a medical or a health issue.
A health issue. Because now it's going to affect the public. So now we can bring in the CDC. And now we're pulling the money away from these smaller agencies. Because we know it's all about this.
Oh, yeah. It's all about
It's all about the dollar and keep them there.
They open up and close down in your district left and right, like illegal marijuana cannabis places.
Yeah. So we make it a federal issue.
Yeah.
We bring in the CDC.
Yeah.
Now the federal government takes control of it. And you know what? There's a lot that we can do. There's a lot.
Donald Trump recently said that he's all for lessening the federal implications about cannabis, about looking across the country and saying, we're going to ease off the federal requirements and the laws and change some things here. What is your take on that? Because in District 29, there's lots of cannabis businesses.
Well, let me share this story. A neighbor. Father was a retired police officer. Kid at 5 years old started having migraines that were unbelievable. Up until for about maybe 7 or 8 years, I would speak to the father about that. I said, look, I don't support the use of just, recreational marijuana. I said, but I'm told that there is some liquid, some drops, some things that you can do for your son,
right? Medical
marijuana that can help him. Because he was an officer, he didn't want to touch it. But after spending massive amount of money, seeing his child suffer, he finally tried it.
Yeah.
And guess what?
It
helped.
Yeah.
It helped. So here it is, and I hear these stories over and over and over.
The oils.
There's oils. There's sprays.
They take the toxicity out of. They take the THC out of the cannabis plant, and you're left with the oil of the plant, and that's the healing perspective.
And this young man that actually was a recipient of that just graduated from the university.
Right on.
Guess what he's doing? He's creating a new strand that is less than 1%, he says. 1% of THC, that all it will do is just the CDCs that it just help the individual. So look what happened.
So your stand on that is?
My stand on it, I support the medical marijuana.
Right.
You know, it's something, there's people who need it.
The state of California, though, the voters passed recreational marijuana about a couple of years ago.
Well,
they just, state of California can't figure out how to legislate it.
Well, the state of California is just looking for money any way they can. But at the end of the day, they realize that there could be other issues that they're going to deal with in the long run, but that's okay for them because then they just come up with some other organization and make more money.
Right.
You know, well, let's go ask the government for this amount of money now because of what we're dealing with, because of the problem we created.
Yeah,
well, and I think because the homeless is such a major issue that Benito's bringing in the CDC, what that does is that brings in funding for supportive housing, for treatment, for substance abuse, they're bringing the whole enchilada of everything from detox to vocational training to, the whole thing as under the CDC. There's plenty of money.
Yeah, when you were here last, we talked about that. It was something that we talked about that you were totally in favor of making it a health issue at the state level. But if you could make it a health issue at the federal level,
now you're talking big bucks.
Now you're talking something that could work across the nation.
Yes, sir.
With the right legislation everywhere.
A pilot program for the 29th Congressional District.
Look, give me your issues real quick and what you want to do, real fast.
Well, we talk about the illegal migration. You know, that's something that we want to fix the system. You know, we talk about the abuse in the welfare system. We got to limit that. It's got to be something no more than 4 years in order to get people back into the workforce. We talk about our veterans. We talk about our seniors, seniors that are having to make decisions based on, am I going to pay the bills? Am I going to put food on the table? That should never be happening. Never be happening. And then you talk about the homeless situation. You know, foreign policy and all of that. Well, yeah, I don't think if you're not in office, I don't think you really know all the facts.
Right. So
it'd be premature for me to take positions on that until I get into office and I really know what's going on. But I did oppose the Iran nuclear deal. I was very clear about that from day one.
Hey, look where can folks see you? How can they keep in touch with you?
If they go to my Facebook, Benito Bernal for Congress 2018, our webpage is bernalforcongress2018.com.
Right.
Checks.
Yeah.
P.O. Box 8135. Benito Bernal for Congress, first of all. P.O. Box 8135, Mission Hills, California, 91345. Gotta have to get the message out, people. Help me.
Absolutely. And the next time you have a personal conversation with God and
Amen.
He tells you He doesn't want to give you any money, tell God to give me some money. Okay? I'll share it with you, Lee. I'll share it with you, baby. David, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse, so much. Appreciate it.
The Jesse T Show. We are out of here. The Brown Beauty's off duty. See ya. You sure I could use a couple of bucks, man? Just a couple of bucks.